So I saw on Instagram the big Shul by the Shore Hanukkah party.
Oh yeah, it was pretty nice. It was. We had several hundred people. I'm saying 500.
I think that's fair.
In America, if you want to say there was 300, you have to say 500 because then they'll think there was 300.
Right.
You say 300, then there was 20.
Yeah, it looked like quite the turnout.
It was. We were actually worried.
Yeah.
About it because it turned out to be the week of vacation and people were traveling, so we didn't know what to expect. But it seemed that people enjoy this kind of an event. You get a free donut and free Hanukkah geld and a chance to guess how many dreidels for some gift, which we never really said.
Did we do anything?
Yeah.
Oh, what?
One family, but they won.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
So,
and I think on the donut thing, I think my Instagram feed one day was basically filled with just donut pictures of Chailea and various children going around and eating donuts throughout all of LA.
I told the congregation, this is the Greek revenge.
That's
we won the temple and they gave us heart disease.
I know.
Right.
I know.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did a donut crawl. It was really fun. I mean, it was pretty nauseating, but it was fun.
Not I. They didn't invite me for some odd reason. I don't know why.
I saw you enjoying the donut.
There was
very nicely.
But I was not invited to the
You were not invited.
No, I was not invited to the crawl.
No, you have to be young and on the go, on the move. We stopped at several different places. You have patience. You don't have patience for that.
It takes stamina to do a donut crawl. I mean, it does. It's effort.
It's okay if all the bakeries bring it to one spot.
I know.
Then I wouldn't go. But to go from bakery to bakery,
right?
The best one was my son Shimshin, who's 17. He every time. So we had like a sheet, and they were supposed to keep track of every flavor and restaurant and bakery and. Whoa, I don't know what just happened. But anyway, they were supposed to keep track. And he was like, I don't know. I like every donut. How are you supposed to rate these? It doesn't make any sense. He was getting so frustrated at us.
Yeah.
But my nieces were much better about being very sort of discerning about which dough was better, which flavor was better, which toppings. Shimshin was useless. He was every donut's delicious.
I'd be with Shimshim. I would just shove my face full of donuts and wouldn't be able to tell anything about them aside from getting the sugar rush.
Yeah, that's how he was for sure.
and I also noticed, surprising. I mean, I guess not surprisingly, I didn't realize that your husband has quite the singing voice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He has a beautiful voice. I was impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the cantor of the shul. He's the chazan, and
he was the chazan. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
His whole family is very musical, and I know it's probably why I married him, so that we would saw by the Shorahad, and that's why my parents set me up with him and forced me to marry him.
The Perlmutters don't have the singing voices.
The opposite.
No, one second. You're okay. Well, your family has.
But your family,
my
sibling. No, we are not fingers. No,
we try.
Yeah,
we try.
But
A for efforts.
My father taught me. Some Hasidic families have a lot of meaning behind the songs that they grew up singing at their home, and there's long traditions of family songs and favorite songs. We grew up, my father taught us one song, and it was the theme song to the Beverly Hillbillies. And that was the only song that my father ever taught us. I think. I can't think of another song.
Well, that encapsulates everything about life.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know. You're poor one day, you're rich the next day. You don't fit in. It's like Jews.
Yeah.
We make money, but we never fit in.
That's right.
It was.
Hey, what do they say in the theme
Jews
song?
are the garbage of the world.
Black gold. So
black gold.
It's got gold in it. So, it's a Jewish song.
Come on, it's a Jewish story. He was a Chassidic hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
It's like a grand Jewish.
So,
okay, you're right. Like that. That's true.
So what are we going to talk about today?
So I thought of this topic actually because the last few weeks of the year, we're recording this on January 2nd, so it's just 2025. In the last few weeks of the year, I've been inundated, like many people have been, with charity campaigns. for various nonprofits and different groups, and a lot of people trying to wrap up their end of year giving. And so I realized, that charity is such an interesting topic because first of all, the way the Torah looks at it, the way Judaism looks at it, and then sort of the way it's applied today in the world that we live in. I think there's a lot of room for discussion about how we view charity today. And I had some questions about it myself, and I wanted to ask my father about it. And I just want to say a personal thing first, and then we can get into the rest of it. But I grew up with a set of grandparents, my mother's parents actually, who after they retired from their jobs, spent the rest of their lives running a charity organization in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, in the community. And it was not the kind of charity where there was like a big overhead and, people were getting paid millions of dollars. This was fully voluntary. My grandparents never took a penny for it. But what they did is that they collected money and they fed families in the community that needed help with food for Shabbat, for holidays. They would give them like coupon. Well, it started that they would actually have boxes of food that the families would come pick up from their garage. And then it turned into...
And they delivered.
And they delivered the boxes to people's houses. And then because it became bigger and bigger, it turned into like coupons. My grandfather would contact the local kosher grocery stores and butchers and wine stores, and he would make deals with them. And then he would make vouchers and families would get vouchers. And after my grandparents passed away, my uncle took it over and his kids. And so they continue to run it. And they give away hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to families that just literally need help to pay for meat and wine and chicken for Shabbat or holidays. And, just to...
More and clothes now.
And now they've expanded into a lot more. And so I was thinking about it, right, toys now and like back to school backpacks. But I was thinking about it, and it's just, there's something... I think it's easier to give charity when you know the people that it's going to. And I want to kind of tap into that because, there's a difference between writing a check to like some big national organization, that does something good. Not that that's bad, because that's also important, but versus, supporting your own community with people who like need food for their family. Right. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and sort of how our government taking over welfare needs has sort of changed the way we view charity in American culture. And so, I don't know, I just want to throw kind of that out. And I thought we could do it.
What's the name of your grandparents' charity?
It's called CSSY, which is the acronym for Chevra Simcha Shabbos V'Yantif, which is a long name, but basically it's called CSSY. And my grandparents, they spent the last 20 years of their lives, maybe more, maybe 30 years, fully committed to that full time. That's all they did.
My father-in-law, God bless him, heard a cry. The Rebbe once spoke at a public gathering about why people are not... In Pesach, everybody knows you're supposed to give moskitim, you're supposed to give people money, for Passover.
Yeah.
But for the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot and Sukkot Torah, then why not? So my father-in-law jumped in. No one asked him to do this.
Right.
He all of a sudden started collecting money and thinking it was a one-time shot. He'll do it for 1 year, and that was it. So he collected some money. He gave out the money the first year. He distributed the money. After the holidays, he wrote a little report to the Rebbe saying, "Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is how much I collected. This is how much I spent. And have a good day. Basically, I'm done." Rebbe said, "You're done. You just got started. I mean, you can't be done."
Right.
He did such a good job, and that was it. My father-in-law then, from that moment on till he passed away, spent his days collecting money and helping people. And in the beginning, him and my brother-in-law, my father-in-law was not a well man, would put together boxes, and they would drag up 4 flights of stairs in places where there was no elevator. My brother-in-law dragged the boxes, and then eventually, Haile said it, turned more into coupons. And
oh, that's great. Well, we'll link to it in the notes for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting just being in the house because I lived with my grandparents for 4 years after high school. And so it was interesting seeing kind of both sides of it, which was, the collecting the money part and then also the giving the money part. And I think a lot of times we don't get that opportunity to see the giving the money part. Like we see a lot of collecting, right? I fundraise for a living. My father fundraises for his shul. Like we see a lot of that, but we don't often see the part where the families come to the house and are crying at my grandparents' kitchen table. And they're like, we need more money, or we don't have this, or, the phone calls that came in. And just, I think that had a huge impact on my life, just seeing that up close and personal. And I think that's very powerful for people to see that with their own eyes, because it makes charity so much more real and relevant. So
yeah, for sure.
I guess we could start with like broadly, what is the Torah? What's the Torah's view on charity and what our obligations are?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I have an answer.
Oh, good.
I'm sure it came out of nowhere. You were not expecting that question.
It's incredible. Well, first of all, we have to ask this philosophical question: why should I give charity?
Right.
Why should I give charity? If I'm a faith-based person, basically, I believe that God controls everything, and we talk about how God, in the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, decides how much you're going to make, and no matter what you do, you're going to make more. Why should I interfere with God's plan? If God's plan is that this poor guy should make $14 this year, what am I'm supposed to intervene? Why should I intervene at all? And why should we give charity at all? I mean, this is just a general philosophical question that. So the Torah comes along at the end of Deuteronomy, and Moses, before he passes away, tells the Jewish people, and I'm going to quote from chapter 15, verse number 7 in Deuteronomy, and he clearly says, if there shall be a destitute person among you, any of your brethren in any of your cities in your land that God gives you, you shall not harden your heart or close your hand against your destitute brother. Rather, you shall open up your hand to him, and you shall lend him his requirement for whatever he is lacking, etc., etc., etc. Then it goes down to say, and this is not the first time it says it, but I'm just quoting from this part because I want to do verse number 11, and this is the key here. Why is this important? For destitute people will not cease to exist within the land. There's always going to be poor people in the land. Why God chose them to be poor and God chose some to be rich, and that's a whole different discussion for another time. But Moses is saying to the Jewish people, you should know you're going to go into the land. There are going to be some of you that are going to make it and you're going to become wealthy and going to do well. And then there's going to be people that are going to fall off the grid. They're not going to be able to support their families. They're not going to be able to to enjoy what everybody else is doing. Know well that it is a commandment. I'm telling you, whether you like it or you don't like it, don't close your hand. Don't be a cheapskate. Don't harden your heart. If your brother comes to you, and by brother, he means everybody, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, like a poor person, doesn't matter. If it comes to you, do not be a cheapskate. Open up your heart. Give, even when you say to yourself, why should I do it? I'm working hard for my money and this guy's not. Know that this is the mission of your life. Right. The Talmud says more than the rich person does for the poor person does for the rich person. Now you say, what do you mean by that, Rabbi? What do you mean the more than the poor rich person does for the poor person? He does everything. He supplies them the money, he gives them the food, he gives them the ability to live. Yeah, I'm sorry. That is true. But the fact that the rich person, the wealthy person, has this money, it's because God trusts him that he will do the right thing, that his destiny is to do what tzedakah means in Hebrew is righteousness, not charity. We call it charity because that's the common name for giving people money to organizations or to poor people. But the word tzedakah comes from righteousness, that the right thing to do, that God has blessed you with extra, that is because he trusts you. And he trusts that you're going to do the right thing. And when you fulfill your destiny of sharing that, and you're God's partner, or you're managing his money, because God God says in the Torah, all money is mine. I'm the owner of the money. So in the beginning of the year, what God does is he says, okay, half the money will go to mosque. Okay, then you get half the money. The other half goes to the rest of the world. Okay, fine. So mosque, whatever you do, you do. But the rest of the money goes a little here, a little there, a little this, a little that. You know what? So now God God says to you, because you have been fortunate, because your business is successful, and because, think of it, that I'm your partner, and I'm expecting you to do the right thing. And that's what Moses is saying over here. In the Talmud, one of the great authors was Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He was the one, we talked about him a number of times. He authored the Mishnah. It says, Rebbe Mechabed Ashirim. Rebbe would honor the rich people in Shul. Now this, if you go to a congregation, it's interesting. Rich people are going to get honored. I mean, that's the fact. I always joke around with the congregation that no matter what, if Warren Buffett or Bill Gates walks in and wants the front seat, first row, whoever's sitting there is boom. You're out of there so fast, you don't even know how fast you are. Okay? That's it. It's because in all reality, Warren Buffett's last name is not Buffett, it's Getz. What Warren wants, Warren gets. That's basically the name of the game here in America, and we don't make any bones about it. I mean, there's a few people up there, gay.
It's not because he's special.
It's not because he's special, no. It's because he comes with $150 billion in his pocket, and you're hoping and praying, since the shul needs a few $1 million to finish.
Right.
So you know what, so Warren, whatever you want, Bill, whatever you want, Musk, whatever you want. But so Rebbe. So people complain about that. I mean, look, you're giving all the honor to the rich people. But Rebbe himself honored rich people. When people asked him, Lama, why? He said, Hashem honors them. Hashem is honoring them. If Hashem believes in them, that they're going to do the right thing, that they are worthy of having this fortune, means that God trusts them. Now, it all comes down to making the right decision. Just because God trusts you doesn't mean that you're going to always make the right decision. So there are going to be times when there are wealthy people that are hard-hearted. They don't want to share. They're what we call cheapskates, Compsons. They're cheapos. Yes, because God cannot force you to do it. He trusts you, but he's not going to force you to do it. The same thing is true with charity, where God says, this is the way the world is going to work. And the reason why charity came around is, of course, is to teach us compassion. If we were, as I said in the beginning, why do I need charity for? We wouldn't know what the word compassion means. It means everyone would live in their own cocoon and do whatever they want to, and we would never understand what it means to give. Because God forbid, you could be wealthy on Tuesday and sitting in poverty by Friday. I mean, the world turns like a ball. So the Torah clearly says over here that charity is a must. It's not an option. Right. It's not an option. It's a must. And as a matter of fact, in the Talmud, it says that charity is equated to all the other 612 commandments. If you took a scale and you put 612 on one side and charity on the other side, the scale equals out. Skula keneged kol mitzvahs. Yeah. It is compared to all the other mitzvahs in the Torah. People ask, why charity? So many other beautiful mitzvahs, Shabbat, if other mitzvahs, why is charity? So you can give a number of reasons. Number one, because, charity saves lives. I mean, literally, you're saving someone's life. So what greater mitzvah can be than that? But Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, explains in his Magnum Opus, the Tanya, he explains why is charity considered equal to all the other mitzvahs. And in general, he says in the Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, when it refers to the mitzvah, it refers to charity. Why charity is so important? Because unlike other mitzvahs where you're only using a part of your body, let's say shaking the lulav and esrog, so you're using your hands. Let's say you go to shul, you're using your legs, put on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles, you're using only a part. Charity is you put your whole essence, your whole being into making that money. Every day when you go to work, you're so involved. Everything is involved in it. Your mind, your action, your speech, your thought, everything is involved in that money. So because that money was made through your entire effort of all of your faculties, both intellectual, both emotional, therefore, since the entire essence and being of the person is wrapped up in making that money, when you give it away, you give away everything, your entire, your soul and your body and your thing. So because you worked hard for it, then the Alter Rebbe, of course, is always one step ahead of everybody else because he's a smart man, very smart man. So he knows that you're going to ask the question, but what about a guy who inherits the money? He didn't even work.
That's true.
He didn't work one minute for the money. He didn't even sweat one ounce, for the money. What about him? Well, why should he get the credit of the mitzvah of everything? So the Alter Rebbe says, since he can go and buy other things with the money, then he doesn't have to give it away. He can buy. He
has choices.
He has choices. The fact that he gives it away, and the fact that he could use that money to buy food and other things that keeps him alive. So that part of the living that he could use for himself, he gives to another person. That's considered compared to everything else. So sometimes there are some people that are natural givers. I mean, they don't have to be asked. They know that it's a responsibility to come. But for many people, this can be a challenge, and they have to work on themselves, to give the charity. But we see from the Torah how very, very important and fundamental it is.
It's interesting, the idea that money collects where it will do the most good. Because it makes me think of, there's a little bit of an aside, but I think it's sort of analogous to this. That great Jew, Ayn Rand. She's in this perspective, she's very misunderstood. A lot of people think that she would say society should just ignore the downtrodden and the disabled because they don't benefit society. But that's actually not really what she believed. What she said was that society should put its effort into helping the smartest and the most capable, because ultimately those are the people that will be able to help the disabled and the downtrodden, right? Those are the people that will create Neuralink that will allow for blind people to see and quadriplegics be able to have functional lives. So it's interesting that it's a similar obviously they came from very different perspectives and how they got there, but it's sort of this idea of resources collecting in the places where it can do the most good for society as a whole.
For most people.
You have to be careful when making choices, because there are people, when you come to them and you say, look, there's a poor girl here in our community and she needs money for her wedding. She's an orphan. Could you please help? He says, well, I'm giving my money to Neuralink.
Right. Sure.
I wish I could help this girl, but no. I think that the best money is going to be to give it to AI, give it to Sam Altman. Right. And Sam Altman, he's going to take care of all the problems. So when this girl's grandchildren are ready to get married, they won't have to worry about it anymore, because AI will come and will create a dress for them. She'll look beautiful at the wedding.
I see what you're saying. I think, so what Ayn Rand was saying was more of before Elon Musk was Elon Musk, when he was a kid, right? Yes. Society, and her idea was that society would recognize that he was special in some way, and that should be nurtured. His skills should be nurtured by society, so that he would. That
I think everybody agrees with, but it's a slippery slope when coming to start judging about when, where, how, and who. I remember one time there was a man here, Mr. Beryl Weiss, Chailea knew him, was a very generous man, very, very generous. And the more generous you are in a big Jewish community, and especially in a religious community, you're gonna attract to yourself a lot of different people who need money, because they know that Mr. Weiss is a charitable guy. So he one time asked the Rebbe, how do I make a decision about what to give? I mean, a guy comes to me and says, my daughter needs a wedding dress. Another guy comes, my children need the tuition help. And a third person comes, I'm building a new shul. A fourth person comes, this, and, I have a sick mother. What do I do? Rebbe said, whatever falls into your head initially, that's what you should do. Mm-hmm. Whatever you do, if a guy comes in and says, I'm going to give this guy 1,000, 1,000 should be the number. Don't sit and debate, because once the debate starts to come in, you'll end up giving him 3 cents.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. And if go ahead, because what I'd like to do is maybe for just a couple of minutes after talking, Maimonides, which of course distills everything down to such practical matters. He takes the most difficult question and puts it down in his book of laws, literally in step by step. I'm just going to
Yeah,
talk a little bit about
we should do that. I think I just want to say one point that I think what's unique about the Orthodox community and maybe other religious communities or small minority groups also might have this, is that charity is very personal. You know the people who are getting the money, who need the money. You understand, the sort of reason behind giving. I think for a lot of Americans and maybe all across the Western world, like you're not really in that kind of community, right? If you live in a middle class neighborhood and all your friends sort of are the same, financial level that you are, and your kids all go to the same type of school, and you don't ever have that kind of run-in with a friend or a neighbor or community member that actually needs financial help just to sustain themselves with basic needs. And we sort of outsourced it to the government to worry about, people being hungry or whatever. But in an Orthodox community like ours, where we all live together, you could have a multimillionaire living right next door to somebody who can't pay their grocery bills for Shabbat, right? And their kids are in the exact same class in school. And so everything becomes much more heightened and nuanced in that situation, because you don't want, you want your poor friend to have a nice wedding, just like her rich friends. I mean, we keep referencing weddings, which maybe we'll talk about why that's a big thing, but whatever the case is, you want to make sure that everybody has what they need within the community. And charity, and this is just my personal opinion, is so much easier when you know the people who are getting the money, or at least the kind of person that's getting the money. So,
which is interesting that you mentioned that, because like I mentioned before, Maimonides, who writes about everything and every topic within the Jewish legal sphere, writes again in the laws concerning what he calls Hilchos Matnes Aniyim, presents to the poor, because back in the time of when Israel was an agricultural society, you had to leave part of your field for the poor.
Right.
Meaning you just couldn't reap your whole field. You had to leave paya, and you had to leave this, and you had to leave others.
All the corners had to be left for the poor. Anything that fell off of the...
And you forgot it
whatever,
there.
If you left it and fell...
And then there was special gifts for the poor. Right. So he does it now. Now there's most of us are not farmers.
Right.
We're not dealing with fields. So he writes in chapter 10, he writes like this. First of all, he writes like this: we are obligated to be very careful with regard to the mitzvah of charity to a greater extent than all other positive commandments, because charity is an identifying mark for a righteous person. And he keeps on going. A descendant of Abraham, our patriarch, because Hashem said about him, I have known him because he commands his children to perform charity. So charity by itself is identifying mark about your Jewishness. So you come to a guy and he says, I'm not giving charity, you have to question about where he comes from, because Maimonides. Then he writes like this, okay? He writes, there are 8 different levels of charity. 8 different levels of giving charity. I think it would be interesting if we run through them just very quickly. We're not going to...
I've done like 7 reports in school on this. Every time I had to write a paper about this.
Because you said about knowing who to give it to, and you give it to, it's easier, but listen to what he says over here. Because also, one of the things that we don't take into consideration when we're doing charity, it's not like writing a check to the United Way or giving it to a hospital, where it's just, you're anonymous, you don't know where it goes. But we're talking about charity where you're helping someone individually.
Right.
So the highest level of charity is when the highest level beyond which there's none in a person who supports a Jew has fallen into poverty is giving him a loan, entering a partnership with him. Meaning that, you want to get him out of his state.
Right.
That's your goal. You want to, he needs a job. Help, he needs a job, you do this, or finding him work that his hand will be fortified, that he won't have to ask anybody else anymore.
So the highest level is getting a job or giving a loan.
Getting a guy out of poverty. Helping him get out of that poverty. That's the highest level. And so here's even a loan. Yeah. So here as a loan is more important than actually giving him $100.
Right.
Okay. So here's $100. Get out of my house. I don't want to see anymore.
And can I just pause there for a second? Because I hope Baruch won't mind me saying this, but there was a time in our marriage early on when we were really struggling financially, and we really needed money, right? It was very difficult at that moment. And there was somebody in the Jewish community who was giving out, 0 interest loans to like young families that needed help. And we were able to get one of those loans, and it saved our lives. Like we couldn't have survived at that time without, having that gift from that man. I mean, we paid it back, obviously, but the fact that we were able to survive, for a year, like living off of that money while Baruch got the business going and whatever. I mean, I can't ever repay that man the way that he should be repaid, even though we paid back the money. I can't thank him enough for what he did for us then.
Right. It says, okay, so that's one level out. Now it comes to actually giving away money. Okay? A lower level than this is he who gives charity to the poor without knowing to whom he gave and without the poor person knowing from whom he received it.
Right.
Meaning that, you give it to a fund and the fund gives it to somebody. You don't know who gets it and they don't know where it comes from. Why? Because that we know now you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah itself.
Right.
You're not getting any satisfaction of knowing, that this particular person is benefiting from you, that particular person, and you're also not embarrassing them.
Right.
Okay? Meaning that when you we'll just stop over there. Okay? A level close to this is giving to a charity fund. Meaning it's close, you give it to the fund.
Like CS.
No one knows, you don't know where it goes, they don't know where it comes from, everybody is happy, you gave, they receive, Shalom al Yisrael, peace upon Israel.
Right.
A lower level than that is an instance that the giver knows to whom he is giving, but the poor person does not know where he received. Meaning, it's good for you. You give it to the poor, you give it to the guy, but he doesn't know what you are. Meaning that an example of this were the great sages who would go in secret and throw money into the doorways of the poor. Means at night they would go around and drop it off into everybody's homes. The people would wake up in the morning and there would be money there for them, and they wouldn't know where it came from.
Right, because in those instances, the receiver can't repay it because they don't know who gave it,
and he's not humiliated.
Right,
doesn't not ashamed.
Right.
That's it. A lower level than that is an instant when the poor person knows from whom he took, but the donor does not know to whom he gave. Meaning that you know who the giver is, but the giver doesn't know. What's an example of this? Where there were sages who would bundle money in a sheet and hang them over their shoulders, and the poor person would come and take it from them without being embarrassed.
Oh.
Meaning he wouldn't look at who took it, but he would walk with his bag behind him, and people would come and take money out of the bag. They would know where it came from, but he did not know where it went.
Oh, interesting.
So you know what? So again, that's a little lower than the one that he gives and they don't know. Here they know where they're getting it from, so it's a little lower. A lower level than this is giving the poor person's hands before he asks. Meaning, you know who you're giving it to. He knows where it's coming from, but you're doing it before he has to actually humiliate himself and ask you.
Right.
So, when in the morning someone tells you, hey, you know what? This person needs a little bit of hands. You take $100 from your pocket, you go with him and you slip it into his pants and you say goodbye, and leave. Okay?
Yeah.
Then a lower level is giving him after he asks. Meaning, you want to give it to him. He asks you, no problem. You take $100. Here's $100. Have a wonderful day. A lower level than this is giving him less than what is appropriate, but with a pleasant countenance. Meaning you say, look, I'd love to help you. I can't give you the whole $100. I'll give you $50, and I'm so happy to be able to help you. You know what? You make him at least the guy is humiliated, but he's not humiliated to 100%.
Right.
He's only humiliated to 50%.
Right.
Because, he got at least something from you, but you treated him nicely. A lower level than this is giving him with sadness. Okay? Meaning, you're back again. I mean, you're here again. Okay. You know what? I'm going to give it to you, but
I'm not happy about it.
Here.
Yeah.
Why don't you go get yourself a job?
Right.
You say that to him, That's the lowest level, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. That's the lowest level, means that you gave it to him and you gave it
with an attitude.
With an attitude.
Right, begrudgingly.
Lowest level. Meaning Maimonides doesn't even put into place that you refuse to give it to him because he can't even believe that there's such a person. How could there be a person when another person comes up to you and asks you for something? That's why when I give a class or when people ask me, what about these homeless people that are always asking
I was just going to ask you that.
asking you for money? I say, give him the money. Okay, you're not the arbiter for what for the world. You say, but Rabbi, he's going to use it for alcohol and drugs. Is it your business what he uses it for? The fact that you're giving him the money, you have done your duty.
Yeah.
Now he makes a decision what he wants to do with his. But the fact that you say to him, I'm not giving it to you, that kind of throws some shade on you. Because you know what? And what if it was a single mother that you knew for sure that she's going to give it? I'm not so sure you would be also willing to give.
Right.
Okay. So when I'm going, and let's be honest, what are you giving this homeless guy? You're not giving him $1,000. You're not even giving him $100. You're not even giving him $20. You're giving him $2.
Right.
Come on,
Right.
$2. You can make such a timid. Oh, you know what? Oh, look at this. Look at this. You know, I'm not going to give him the $2 because he's going to use it for $2 chuck. That's wine. You know, like a cheap wine. Okay.
I never heard of that.
Yeah. So you're going to be. You know what? Give him the money because that shows about you what kind of a person you are. Forget about the receiver. What kind of person are you? So give him the money. There's the old joke. Can I tell a joke? I mean,
yes, tell it.
So you know what? The guy, he died. He went up to heaven, and the guy was a cheapo. I mean, this guy was like, like them. They never did any good deeds to anybody. So the tribunal was up there. It was an open and shut case. This guy is definitely going downtown, meaning, down except not up. Okay? You're not going to heaven. But all of a sudden, his defense attorney, who was an old retired lawyer, but, was volunteering, what do you call those guys? The
public defender.
Public defender, because he could not afford himself a Johnny Cochran. This guy was too cheap to pay for a Johnny Cochran. So he gets a public defender. Nothing wrong with them. I love the public defenders. Yes. But he says to him, wait. Hold on. One time, I know this guy's a cheap guy, but you know what? He grew up as a spoiled kid. His parents literally ruined him. And one time, while he was walking down the street, a poor guy approached him. He gave him a quarter and walked away. Come on. You know how difficult that was? You have guys that come in here all the time giving 100,000, 200,000, but it's easy for them. For this guy, the same effort it took this guy to give 100,000, it took the same effort for this guy to give a quarter. Come on, you got to take that into consideration. Well, the tribunal talked among themselves, and then they were said, yeah, he's right. I mean, you know what? Because up here, effort means a lot, and then how the struggle and the thing. So what are we going to do? So the debate, they didn't know what to do, so they decided they'll take this case to God. When they had a tough case, they'll take it to God. So they go upstairs, they knock on the door, whatever it is, they'll open the door, there's God. And they say to him, we have a tough case, we don't know what to do. They tell him the whole case. Poor guy, rich guy, cheap guy, and them guys, and poor guy, a quarter. God says, you know what? Give him back the quarter and tell him to go to hell.
I was not expecting that as the time.
Okay? Just give him back the quarter and tell him to go to hell. I mean, but on a serious note, a guy who gave away a quarter with a struggle sometimes is better than a guy that's just a natural that gives $100.
Right.
Because, this guy really had to struggle within himself. Mm-hmm. But I think it's clear from what we've seen, through from biblical times, and God is gets so angry, at people when they are not willing to do this, when they take advantage of other people. You know what? You can commit idolatry. God could forgive you, even though maybe the worst sin in Judaism is to deny God. But He could forgive you for that because He understands that sometimes it's a challenge. But to take advantage of other people, like for example, in the olden days there was Shemitah. The land had to lay fallow, and the
7th year.
The 7th year, and the slaves went home. Whatever that whatever slavery was, whatever, all loans were forgiven. And if you could not abide by that, meaning that you still chased the guy for the loan, even though that biblically he was not responsible for paying you, that God could not abide by. Man. You can do a lot of things to him. Don't pray, reject him. He can take it. But when you take advantage of other people, that's really where God draws the line. There is something I can't see, and that's why the temples were destroyed, because of this hatred, one from another. The charity was not given to one another. You don't feel the other person's pain in that. And that's, I think, the key to charity is trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Thank God you were blessed. Thank God you're doing okay. Try to think of someone else.
So I was at my mom's old house maybe a month or two ago, and my stepfather, who lives there now, randomly he comes out with, "Oh, look what I found," and it was my Tzedakah box from Hebrew school from the early 90s. I had no idea this thing still was there, had money in it and everything. When did that start in sort of this formalized Tzedakah box giving in Hebrew schools?
So in the Middle Ages, we had every community was organized by what we call Shevet Tuvair. There was 7 people that ran the community, and they were responsible for taking care of the welfare of the community. The rabbis were responsible for the spiritual aspect of the communities, but the welfare and the well-being of the community. So they established in every shul had what they called a poor man's charitable fund, a tamchui, both food and money. Food and money means that if someone rolled into town, a stranger, and he needed a place to eat, the shul was open for him and he could take. Then there was a fund. That fund already was more regulated. If you were a stranger and came into town, because there's levels of, let's say you only have a limited amount of money, you give it to your family first or you give it to the stranger first. Well, your family comes before everybody. Right. Then your strangers in your town come first in your community. Then people who are visiting, they come next. So there was funds throughout the city where strangers and visitors can take part, in food, but there was funds that went directly just to the poor people of the town. So that's how every town lived. I mean, that if a town doesn't have these things, they're lacking in organization.
Right.
Then what happened, of course, was that people, couldn't always make it to shul and give it to the fund. So people would gather their money in their homes. And then they'll eventually, before Yontif or whatever it is, they take the whole money, wasn't in a box, but take it and give it to the what we call the gabbai tzedakah, the collectors of of charity. And probably that's how it started. Now, who came up with the first charity box? This I can't tell you. I have no idea. But I know that in America, one of the early ones was a JNF at Blue Box.
That's what it was. It was a JNF box.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So they were one of the first ones to come up with the idea that every family should put a box in every home, and then you have with a key, and you can open it up. Or the guy who used to come to your house, he had the key, so to open up your box, and that became a staple in every Jewish home. Well, not always just the JNF.
No, right.
Once already they started it,
right.
Everybody knew it was a great idea, and they kind of jumped on it, to do that. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask this question because, I think everyone knows about tithing. We have an obligation to tithe, right? 10% of our whatever we earned.
Correct.
But is it also a mitzvah to give charity every single day? Because, okay, so I want to talk about that because if you're raised in any kind of Orthodox day school or preschool, you know that the first thing you do in the morning is every kid brings a penny or a nickel or a dime, and you give charity every single morning in class. It's part of the routine. And I think it's a way of preparing us that for the rest of our lives. That's what I give charity every single day. I have tzedakah boxes in my house, and every day my kids and me, we all put money in the charity box. And then every few months we empty them and give it to the organization or whatever that, the box is for. But I didn't know if that was a commandment or is it?
It's not clear if it's a commandment to give every day. You should give every day for training.
Right.
There were many great sages that gave charity before they prayed in order for their prayers to be heard. So, but I don't know if there's a mitzvah every single day. It's better to give every single day just to train you. Right. As a matter of fact, the question comes up, what is better? Is it better to give $1,000 at a shot or to give every day for 1,000 days $1? Maimonides clearly is of the opinion number 2.
Really?
It's better to give $1,000 $1 every day because why? You're trained every day. And you know what happens? if you give $1 every day, then you give $2. Then the next day you give $4. Then the next day you give more.
Right.
Eventually you give more. If you give one shot, it's not. It's this. If a guy needs $1,000, you give him the $1,000. Don't say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I'll give you $1 because you're the dollar of the day guy.
Right.
You know, of course not. But it's training. It's training. And not only is it training, Kabbalistically, what happens is your charity box in your home opens up for your own family blessings.
Right.
I'll tell you a story that happened to me. In the early 90s, I was the director of the Hebrew Academy, the local day school over here. We were having tremendous money problems. I mean, there was never enough money. I mean, every day, all my job was just to cover the deficit of that particular day. Well, it happened that once a year, all Chabad Shluchim go to New York. All the rabbis meet together, what they call kinnis, a gathering of all the Shluchim. This was in the early 90s. The Rebbe was still with us. And on Sundays, every rabbi had an opportunity to go by, and the Rebbe would give them $1 for charity. I decided this year I'm going to have to ask the Rebbe for a blessing. I mean, it's not easy because you have to talk to the Rebbe, and you know, my heart is beating. I don't want to take the time of him. Yeah. He has 1,000 people that he needs to see. What am I? I'm a schlepper. I'm a nobody, to do that. So, but I was under such dire straits that I figured I have to. I mean, I could write him a letter and I'll get an answer, but it's not the same as.
Yeah.
So for weeks, I'm practicing, what I'm going to say to the Rebbe. And then, as the time goes up, I got my chance and I got my $1 and I leaned over to the Rebbe and I said, the matziv is, the situation is very, very dire. The Hebrew Academy asked a blessing from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to me, make sure there is charity boxes in every classroom. So the kids could give. Wow. Make sure there's charity boxes in every classroom. That was, and I understand exactly what the Rebbe meant, because once you give charity, more charity is going to come to you.
Right.
So the next thing we did was we got beautiful wooden charity boxes and we put them in each classroom. Made sure the kids would give. It was still tough. I can't tell you that it went like from nothing to great. But the Rebbe understood that training children is not only a blessing for the children themselves, but it's also a blessing for the school. It's a blessing for the community. And if the more you give, the more Hashem is going to see, hey, you know what? These people deserve it. So it is an incredibly important idea to influence children early on, is by sharing.
That's right.
By sharing. Today, we don't have that opportunity as they did back in the olden, like in the days, like Haile had mentioned before, about actually giving to people. Most of us here in California,
right,
to see, like even on Purim, where one of the mitzvahs is to give matanis levyonim, money to poor people, we give it to an organization.
Right.
And we don't drive in our car, let's search out, a poor person. We give it to an organization. That kind of takes away a little bit of that, of the, I would say, of the urgency.
Sir.
You write a check to this fellow in our community. There's a rabbi that raises money for poor people. Other rabbis raise money for poor people, and you give them a check, and you're happy, and you've fulfilled your obligation. But it's very different, like when you know that this money is going towards these people. That's a whole different story.
I think it was so ingrained in us. First of all, it was modeled for us by our parents and community leaders and rabbis and teachers. But also, it was this idea of charity was so ingrained that the concept, I feel like it's just part of what I understand how the world works, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, I like now that we earn money, right? My husband and I, we pay taxes. And then on top of that, this obligation of paying, giving 10% of our money away. And I never question it. It's not like something that I say I'm angry about or frustrated about or whatever, because I truly believe that because we give that money, more money comes to us. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I feel like it's true. I don't, you know what I mean? It's just a part of how I understand the universe works. And that's why, when I light Shabbos candles every Friday, I always give charity first. Right before I light, I have a little tzedakah box right by my candlesticks. I always put a few coins in or $1. And I think there's this, I liked what you said, because I feel like it's me saying to God, I'm taking care of this part. Now you have to take care of the things that I'm asking you when I'm lighting Shabbos candles, right? Because I have a whole list of things that I want Hashem to do for me. But if I'm not doing my part, why would Hashem do his part, right? And so I think there's that give and take. And I just have to say that, there is no greater feeling in the world, in my opinion, than giving charity. I think that it's like a dopamine hit that you can't really get from anything else to a degree. And I wish more people would experience that, because it's not, and it's a certain kind of charity. I think it's a charity that you really feel is making a difference. It's not giving to some whatever random, like, you know,
A national
organization. I think it's like when it's more local, when it's more, you know, something that maybe you see in front of your eyes that's growing or building or whatever. It's a very special feeling, and people should do it more. I don't know how to say that.
I just wanted to add one other aspect. We've been talking now for a while about charity in the concept of giving money.
Yeah.
There's a story about the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe on Yom Kippur, when he, before Ne'ilah, just before Ne'ilah, he took off his talis, he took off his kittel, he left the shul, and he went to the forest and he chopped down a tree and he went into this poor person's home. And it was a mother with a child, and she was hungry and the child was cold. He made the fire. All of these things are forbidden on Yom Kippur. Chopping a tree, carrying an axe, building a fire. All of these things are forbidden on Yom Kippur, except in the case of saving someone's life. Later on, when he came back, and he said, Master, what was going on? So he told him what he did, and he saw, in his vision, however, he knew that this woman needed this at this particular time, and he did it. So then the Hasidim began to debate. Why didn't he send somebody?
Right.
If you have 500 people in shul, and you say to them, hey, Shmerel, do me a favor, here over there in the back of this thing is a woman, go chop down a tree and do it. The Alter Rebbe himself had to go chop the tree and make the fire and feed the baby. And, this why? The Alter Rebbe wanted to make a point that charity is not only about giving money. There's what's called tzedakah begufay, charity that's done with you, with your hands.
Your effort.
Go out there and do something. Because someone could say to themselves, hey, you know what? I'm a poor person. I can't give any charity.
Right.
Yes, you can. Maimonides writes that also, that even a poor person has to also think about giving charity. You not only receive, go out there. Well, I have no money. Don't have money to give. Okay, that's not a problem. You could do other stuff. You could do other things.
Right.
Find somebody that maybe needs a tutor. You can be a tutor for somebody, for some kid, to teach them how to read. Someone needs a babysitter. You can be the babysitter for someone, the mother taking a rest or whatever it is. The matter is that no one in the world could be exempt from charity. Let's say, what can I do, Rabbi? Maybe someone, I don't know, who's a quadriplegic, that can't do anything. Maybe that maybe is a case. And everybody else who's healthy, it's not the monetary circumstances you're in.
Right.
It's an attitude in your head about charity. Charity is an attitude. And if you could help somebody else, no matter what, go shopping for somebody.
Right.
You can't give anybody? Okay. So Mrs. Greenberg, who's a Holocaust survivor, she's a shut-in. Ask her, knock on her door, say, I'm going to the store, Mrs. Greenberg. Could I buy you something? Yes. She says, yes, here's $5. Get me a milk and juice and 2 pears. Okay, and you bring it to her. That's charity.
Right.
That's charity, and that's what makes a society. A society that doesn't deal this way and doesn't care about people is a society that's going to fall apart. And in America, since we all talk about the business of America's business, said President Calvin Coolidge, that all we care about is how much you have and how much you're making and how much it is. We also have to remember, and I think Americans for the most part do understand this, that charity is a very, very important part, of our existence, and giving not only of money, but of giving of yourself is makes you what you are as a human being.
Yeah, I think it's. I remember back when. Remember there was the tsunami in Thailand, probably I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that.
2004. It was 2004.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Okay,
20?
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I remember reading something at the time that the largest donor of recovery money was the U.S. government, and the second largest was U.S. private citizens.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Yes.
so Americans do give.
Americans give.
But there was also something interesting. I think it was John Stossel. This is a while ago. He did something. I'm gonna look this up. If I can find it, I'll link to it. he did something where he set up a charity box in like San Francisco. And it was, I don't know if it was a Salvation Army or whatever it was, but he people would walk by and he would ask people, why did you give? Why didn't you give? And the people who said they didn't give said essentially, well, that's the government's responsibility to take care of, whatever he was raising money for, that's the government's responsibility, right? And then he did the same experiment in, I don't know, Iowa, and not to disparage Iowa, but someplace significantly less affluence than where he was doing it in San Francisco. And he collected more money.
Wow.
And he asked the people, why did you give? And they said, because something along the lines of, it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
And most of them were religious. Most of them were Catholics. And or Christians anyway. And so it was just interesting that the connection between religion and community and feeling like you owe something to people beyond just yourself versus this atomization of society and just thinking that's someone else's responsibility to help people.
It's so true.
It's also in America, it's also marketing.
Yeah.
Where excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sir?
No. It's just it's marketing because here we're always watching or on our phones or everything, and there's a million different charities, and the ones that stand out you'll always remember because of their marketing. Like yes, football was big. I mean, let's college football. I'm tuning in for a little bit, and the Shriners have these commercials, and they are just hard to.
For sure.
They are whoever does their commercials.
No.
Because they're not the only children's hospital.
Right.
There's a lot of children's hospitals, a lot of children's things, but they seem to have their pulse on, and it's the kids that are doing it. And I remember once seeing a little clip, and this just reiterated in my mind. It's about marketing, where there was a poor person sitting on the floor in this busy street somewhere in London or whatever, and he had a sign, "Please give." People were just walking around bypassing it. No one was giving. This young lady walks by and he looks at this guy and he's not making any money. She takes away his sign and she writes something this and she puts it in front of him. And then all of a sudden, boom, people are pouring money into it. She comes back in the afternoon. The guy feels her hands because he knows who it was. He feels her hands and then she sees how much money. And then she picks up the sign, and instead of saying, "Please give," the sign said, "It's a beautiful day. I wish I could see it."
Oh.
It's all she wrote. It's a beautiful day. I wish I can see it. And she put it in front. I mean, if you saw that sign, instead of "Please give," which is that, but all she didn't change the guy's circumstance. She didn't change who the guy was. All she did was make you focus and made you relatable to him.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so lucky. You're walking down the street and you can appreciate the sunshine and the beauty of everything it is. And all of a sudden, all she did, boom, 5 words, and you became now a donor to this guy.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful. It was a beautiful thought and how to the other one. And I'll stop. Is a guy's walking down Fifth Avenue, a busy street, and he sees these two guys. On one side of the street is a rabbi, and the other side of the street is a Catholic priest. The Catholic priest is well-dressed with a nice collar, polished shoes. He's collecting money for the Catholic Church. On the other side is a rabbi, disheveled, his tzitzis are out, his hat is crooked, his beard is flying all over the place. And he noticed he's standing here for 15 minutes, and he notices that the priest is getting $20. Everybody's putting $20. The rabbi's getting quarters. This killed him. I mean, the priest is literally cleaning up, and the rabbi is like just getting murdered. This he couldn't take anymore. So he goes over to the rabbi, and he says to the rabbi, I've been studying for 15 minutes. It bothers me so much that you're getting the quarters. The priest across the street is getting $20. Maybe you clean yourself up, put your tzitzis in, straighten your hat out, polish your shoes. The guy looks at him and calls across the street to the priest, "Hey, Moshe, look who's telling us how to run our business."
That's funny.
What does that tell you? It's all marketing, baby. It's all
or you need a good jingle like that.
Yeah, no, good jingle.
1888 cars for kids.
Oh my God.
I would never give my car to those kids. Never. Just for that jingle.
But just for one last thing about it, but I mean, back to the duties and responsibilities, I think it's a really important point. And I've mentioned this book before, but Sebastian Junger wrote a book called Tribe. It's a very short book, and it's very powerful because he's writing basically as someone who grew up in a middle upper class neighborhood in America.
So much we may use it for our book review.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Oh,
we could, because that might be a good one, because he writes about, learning what it means to be responsible for other people around you. And there's a lot of powerful examples in that book. Maybe that would be a good book for us to do.
I'm putting it on the list right now.
You said the key word, short.
Yeah, it's short. It's a very short book. And I got a lot out of it because it's all about duties and responsibilities and what that means. Because we talk a lot about what we get out of being an American, but we don't often talk about what we give in order to get those good things. And so it's a great book if anybody wants to read. But anyway, give charity.
Yes.
BeachHillel.org is a good place to start. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, if anybody wants to donate, you're welcome to. There's also shoalbytheshore.org. But he has more money than me, so you could give it to, send it to Beach Hillel if we need more. No, we need more. The poor Jewish students on campus have been suffering
a building.
Yeah.
Understand, people have been waiting for this building since the time we got out of Egypt.
Do you know what anti-Semitism is on campus? It's a very hard time.
There's no anti-Semitism on campus anymore. That was last year.
Speaking of marketing.
Yeah. Let's not go there, boy.
It's
another topic for another day.
For sure. Awesome.
Okay.
Great. It was good.
That's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
So if you have any questions about charity or anything else, you can email us at edJEWcationpod@gmail.com. Message us on Substack. Check out our YouTube if you're a glutton for punishment and want to actually see us talk. So until next time, we will talk to you
next week.
Bye-bye.